Recording has started. All right, let's do this.
What's up, guys?
Hello, everyone. I'm Kai. This is Ark.
So I think we're just going to be kind of going over some random stuff. We're going to try and get this as, I guess, from two different perspectives. With me being a PvP player, I want to make it very clear I'm not a top tier player. Okay, I'm just some random player that decided to get a little better at PvP. And a lot of my perspective will come from the PvP side of Destiny. I'm hoping we can kind of like show both ends of the spectrum, along with both. Sorry, my wife literally just walked in and tried to hand me a donut. I think I told her I was doing this, and she literally was like, oh, "Whoops." And then we can have obviously Kai's perspective. So I think this time we're just going to talk about Trials, which is obviously my thing. So I think
okay. I have opinions, even though I play a lot more PvE than PvP. So I have opinions.
That's why I kind of wanted to start with this portion in particular, because the intellect stat. I'll tell you just so you have an idea about how it is in PvP, especially with Trials.
Okay.
And Kai, you've kind of seen it, playing with me. And I think True Vanguard hit it right on the head. He said that a lot of Trials games, especially when you get towards like Game 5, Game 6, Game 7, it's not about gunplay anymore. It's not about using your abilities or trying to get the right build. It's whoever has the most intellect. Because, just for a refresher for people who don't know, intellect is just a passive stat that if you have it higher, you're just going to get it faster. So I'm sure you've seen Kai, like, I'll make a call out when we're playing, and I'll say, hey, let's watch these orbs and build supers. I hate that. I don't like playing like that, but that's just the reality of it. And Cool Guy made a suggestion, which I resonate a lot with, but I'm curious to hear your side of it, is changing the intellect stack to the point that it doesn't change your passive super growth, but it increases the amount of super you get per kill, whether it be PvP against other Guardians or PvE against ads. And maybe you could even tweak it to, like, you get the final hit on like a major or a boss, you get a pretty big chunk. So that's why I think should be adjusted with it, but how would it affect the PvE end if that would be the fit?
Well, I mean, Bungie's obviously committed to keeping a lot of things balanced between PvE and PvP, which I think leads to a lot of the friction points, I think, between a primarily PvP player and a PvE player. Like, there's a lot of supers that are what lots of people call pocket supers, where, like, Well of Radiance, you pocket that super. It doesn't matter how long it takes to get it, because you're just saving it for a specific location and time. Like when you get close to the boss on a strike or on a raid, you may not be using your well at all until you're at that moment that you need that 30% buff and things like that.
Absolutely.
I mean, there were a couple of points, like there was a point like when the Whisper mission came out and they rebuffed Bottom Tree Striker.
Oh my gosh, that was bonkers.
Yeah, and there was a point where you could play the entire Whisper mission, and once you got your super after the jumping puzzle, you could keep your super because you were getting super power or super recharge inside super for every ad you killed. And the Whisper mission is full of ads. But basically, you could just run around in super for the next 5 minutes and go through each of these rooms that are supposed to be really challenging. Now, thinking about your suggestion, I don't think there's any issues with it. I worry only a little bit that supers will become like something you're doing every 30 seconds if it's tied to ads. Yeah. So like if there's 1,000 little tiny taken thralls, like those guys have to add in a way that's so negligible in PvE that it's really, you're talking about like majors, things you have to hit with a shotgun, things like champions or things like that are the ones that are really giving you serious super recharge. But I think it's an interesting idea and it's worth testing. Splash in the chat lulled at me talking about Bungie balancing PvE and PvP, so he clearly doesn't agree.
And that's the balance part. We might be going a bit off of what our script has here, but I kind of want to go with what Splash had said. Balance, and I know we had a bit of a talk with that on your Discord, Kai, but for every PvP player, I think we realistically know that the game will never be balanced, and I think we're all bracing ourselves for stasis. I'm welcoming it. I know it's going to be crazy, but I think what's keeping us with it and having even a shred of hope is knowing how great the PvP experience would be on Destiny if they found a way to make it as balanced as possible. It's hard. I realistically don't think that'll ever happen, but we know the potential that Destiny has if they can really achieve, a balanced state. Like, I personally, like, a lot of people really don't like the new auto rifle meta, but given everything else and all the other tweaks, I really don't think the sandbox for PvP is that unbalanced. You have a couple of outliers, which is another topic altogether. I want to kind of keep this more of a PvP and a PvE conversation, but I don't know. I just think we just want to have that balanced experience because we know how good it is. Like, the first couple rounds in Trials is probably, in my opinion, and I think a lot of PvP players will agree, are probably the most enjoyable because it is about gunplay. Once you get to round 3, especially if you are up by 2 or 3 wins on the round, you're playing for supers, and then it gets kind of boring and slow. So, sorry about that little tangent.
No, it's okay.
But I think you make a good point about the champions, though. I think generally speaking, when it comes to like the super recharge with just anything, I feel like with PvE and PvP, they make it so that ads won't equate to the same amount of super regen as Guardians. So I think they can find that, and I feel like that, unless it's coded really weird, I don't see that being an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think like PvP is trying not to lose the fantasy of Destiny, I guess, like that idea of like you're a magical warlock who can get his flaming sword and throw that sort of, like, they don't want PvP matches to completely lack that, but I understand the point that you're trying to make in that, like, the first few rounds when you're shooting and it's gunplay and it's about skill are very different than when an Arc Strider can walk into my bubble and just kill me in the first hit and things like that. So, like, I have issues with the way supers are balanced in PvP generally, especially as a Titan who likes the bubble. But, like, I'm not sure what other solution. I mean, at some point, like, I like your suggestion of, like, it being tied to kills. Like, if you get a kill or a double kill or a triple kill or something like that. So, like, I think supers should be there, but, like, supers existing at all in PvP are going to lead to somewhat of those kind of tactics where people are going to try to get supers faster. And I think tying it to being good at shooting people or killing people with a shotgun or whatever it might be is going to help with that. But I don't know, like, supers are going to unbalance it in a number of ways just because of how they exist.
The thing is, balancing supers probably could be a whole podcast in itself.
That's true.
We could probably bring that up as, how
we could go through each class for 30 minutes. Like, let's just do warlocks, and then we'll do hunters, and then we'll do titans.
If chat allows it, yeah, I'm down for that, another podcast. But I was gonna get to, and you've probably seen it a couple of times when you've played with Shill and I, Kai. But generally speaking, with Trials, a lot of the wins are based on who can get their second super. I feel like if it made to the point where the only way you can get the second super is if you 100% slay out with your gun, which I feel like they can kind of get to with how fast, because with survival, you get so many kills. I think that might be the issue. Survival, you just get so many supers. But with elimination, with Trials, you can only get so many team wipes, So, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, but I just was curious. We can probably move to the next portion of this topic. Would you welcome removing intellect altogether?
I don't know. I mean, I appreciated the increased complexity of intellect, strength, and discipline on top of resilience, recovery, and mobility, even though 2 out of those stats, to me, as a Titan and Warlock main, like mobility and resilience, I feel like are basically meaningless in the game.
Oh, yeah.
So if you remove another stat, like, people are always going to optimize around the stat that they feel like is going to give them the most ability to win or something like that. And then you'll have things like Controverse Hold, 100 discipline kind of things happening, where someone's got a grenade every 22 seconds or something like that. So, like, people are always going to optimize around things that are going to give them the best probability of doing well in, and that's across PVE or PvP. Like that's why you put a bubble and a well down, because you want that extra 5%, even when in most cases it doesn't really matter. So like I think it's probably better to make intellect mean something, or like the way they're setting up the supers in stasis, about like those things that you can customize your supers with. Maybe the intellect stat can be funneled into specific parts of the super, as opposed to being just about a timer. But I would not want to remove intellect entirely.
I agree with that 100%. I was just curious because I did actually speak to someone in the True Vanguard clan who is more of a PvE player, and he actually called for that, which is like, you don't even play Trials, so why is that a bother to you? His argument, he said something about just revolving everything about having the team composition really gear itself to try and coordinate and pick each other's orbs when using the supers. Then obviously like killing ads and things like that, which I get, but I don't see intellect affecting that,
Yeah, and just to add on a little bit with what I was saying, number one, thank you Tech Jaeger and Valence for the follows. Really appreciate that. Thank you for stopping by to listen to Ark and I. If you do want to follow Ark's YouTube, please YT Ark in chat. This is where all of his videos are on PvP and stuff like that, so please check that out. But just, yeah, I don't see like the casual try-hard sort of balance of this. I don't think either of us are really casual gamers at Destiny, but we're not streamers who spend 40 hours a week. We don't have that ability or time to play, so we're somewhere in the middle there. But like, I think a lot of people missed the customizability of supers and the trees that existed in Destiny 1 as it came to Destiny 2, and Stasis is sort of a move back toward that, so I appreciate that. I would not welcome any decreases in complexity of like stats and things to go for in armor, just because like we already went to a more basic model and it didn't seem like people enjoyed it very much. I would prefer complexity.
100%. I feel like that is something that would be welcomed even on the PvP end. I would love to be able to do an Icarus Dash and a Phoenix Dive at the same time if it meant that I might sacrifice, even my melee. Like I could just have a basic melee. Like I say this as someone who abuses Celestial Fire because I can't win my 1v1s, but I can survive without it if it means that I have two different utilities of mobility in the air. It's a top 3 Dawnblade main. So I don't know. I think you make a very good point with that, and I hope Bungie does something with the light classes, because if it makes it that Stasis is the only one customizable, that would be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. Like, I mean, I'm definitely more of a Bungie defender than a Bungie hater. So, like, I think
too, at the end of the day.
I mean, there's lots of people who have said, like, hey, they haven't done nearly as much since they left Activision. And, I mean, even looking at the PvE side of the game, like, we have gotten 1/3 as many raids as we did this year, like we did in year 2, when Vicarious Visions was doing Warmind and even supporting, like, the fact that they're on their own and still a 500 to 800 person studio. Bungie is by no means small, but they are putting out content on a more limited way, in a more limited way than they did when Activision was running things behind the scenes, I guess. So like, I don't see it being something that's going to just happen and be like, hey, everything's going to get better, things are going to be perfect, things are going to change. Like, I think we can realistically look at like twice a year for major PvE patches. We're looking at one new raid a year and one reprised raid from Destiny 1 a year. Like, we're not getting the amount of stuff that I think people would want to exist, and that's just something we have to be like okay with if we're going to continue to play the game at the amount that we do. So when we ask for these things, we just have to prioritize the things that we really want out of this, what is going to make the playlist better. And to bring it back to Trials, like, the playlist is better when more people are in it. Like,
100%.
I think that's the simplest way of saying it. the more people you can get in it, whether it's tryhards going for adept weapons or newbies trying to get the most basic weapons from a 3-win bounty kind of thing, like whatever changes need to be made in the spirit of how can we get people to come back to this repeatedly, whether they're good or bad.
Exactly. I mean, 100% I will attest. The only reason why I got my Flawless title 2 weeks ago is because it was on the weekend where they had the best rewards at the most people in the playlist, and it was the last weekend of Solstice. So, you know, a lot of people probably didn't realize that you could do the Trials wins after Solstice for the Masterwork, but there were some teams where I'm like, wow, why are we matching you on game 4, game 5? We took it, you know, it got me my title, but compared to last weekend, Exodus Blue, like, it was probably the worst experience. And if you look at my record, probably my worst performing weekend. So it's such a night and day thing when you have, you know, more people or less people in the playlist. And that kind of ties a bit to kind of like another big topic, because I wanted to hear your thoughts on this one. So obviously we need adept weapons. I am not a fan of the Not Forgotten scenario where the best players got the best guns. I feel adept weapons need to have something. I feel like celerity would just have it like an intrinsic thing along with maybe some other passive thing to enhance the weapons, but not to the point that you can 100% win if you have an adept weapon versus a regular. You need something like that that's desirable to chase. That way people aren't farming, you know, low wins. Because especially with me playing with some high-end players now, they in their circle amongst other people, I know people in that realm who purposely KD farm to keep their elo up and keep their KD stat up on Trials Report. That's what they're 100% obsessed with. And I'm like, that's pretty lame, but hey, you do you, you know? But I had always suggested when it came to keeping players in the playlist, my goal and what I would like is for every player to have a desire to go into Trials and to just get better at PvP. Was never a big PvP player. If you look at my statistics, I have a pretty bad KD and KAD because I was so bad before. I wanted to get better at it and I committed to it. But I want that experience for those who go into Trials, because I want every player to have a rewarding experience, to get as many tokens if they really want to stick with the token system, which I have a whole opinion on. But the bounty was such a relief, but I was so annoyed that it's not repeatable. And my solution to that, and I'm curious how you feel about it, is to make the bounty still be the 3-win, but when you repeat it, it'll open anything in the loot pool that you have already previously earned. Would you feel that to be a good enough incentive, even if you're not playing with, like, let's say, other PvP players like Shill and I? Let's say you just picked whoever you had online, even if they're PvP players or not. Would you put yourself through Trials and even willing to try and get better there if you had that incentive?
I mean,
I know I threw a lot at you, sorry.
No, it's okay. This is like thinking, so like when Trials first came out, for those who don't know, when Trials first came out, you couldn't get any of the weapons or armor unless you got to 3 wins, which made, when it came out this year specifically, not previous incarnations of Trials. So a lot of first-timers or people who weren't good at PvP went in, got farmed, got destroyed, didn't get anything, walked out with very little for their work. Tons of tokens, but nothing to spend it on. So I actually want to go into the tokens part, because like the bounty, when you think about it, the bounty is doing stuff in Trials and it's unlocking a weapon.
Or a piece
like,
of armor.
When low-level PvPers like me go into the playlist on a weekend where Summoner is active or Astral Horizon is active, from my perspective, I want as many possible chances to get that gun as possible. And so, like, to me, like, and this is my solution, and I'm actually really curious to see what you think, what you're going to say about tokens. Like, when we had this discussion months ago in Discord, like, I think the number of tokens you get for a win or for bounties should be, like, ridiculous and inflate ridiculously as you go up. So that, like, if you're winning your 5th or 6th game, you're getting, like, 40 tokens.
I agree.
because that motivates a high level player to win games 5, 6, and 7, because then they can go in and get however many rolls they want of. They can go back and because the higher level you are, the bigger your loot pool is, the more you need the tokens, because you've got 15 options as opposed to the 4 in my particular loot pool. So I would rather they just shower the entire playlist in tokens, both for bounties and for wins. So like, give me 10 for my first win, give me 20, give somebody 70 for their 7th win, like, and that means you're not having kids
at the lighthouse.
Yeah, or something like that. They've just got such a ridiculous number of tokens that they're able to go to Saint 14 and then just turn in and get 10 or 20 weapons for going flawless 3 times in a week.
Yeah.
Whereas I get 4 or 5 chances at a summoner for playing my bounty or something like that. That's what I think is a solution. I'd love to hear what you think about it on there. Like, if we're redoing the same bounty, like, to me, like, the bounty is there to unlock just a weapon. What people want, and especially to come back every week, my thoughts are more along the side of like, hey, they just want to be able to get loot and have a path where even if they're suffering and winning 1 or 2 games maximum, they're getting enough rewards through tokens that they can go and get multiple weapons or multiple things for their time in the playlist.
That makes perfect sense. I actually didn't consider that, and I actually 100% agree. My counter to that, only because of just the way that the weapons are set up, and this is not like I think we should probably go with that. I would see that being the best solution. But if you look at the Trials weapons versus other weapons or just main world drops, Trials weapons are like raid weapons where they only have 4 perks per slot. So it's pretty, I won't say it's easy, but it's easier to get a god roll of a weapon. It's easier to get that roll that you're chasing after, if you're winning your games, obviously. I still have yet to get the Eye of Soul that I really want. I got really close, and I think she'll probably beat me to it, which I'm not surprised by. But I guess my counter to that is if we do shower with tokens, maybe add more perks to the loot pool. Add more PVE perks, add more PvP perks, but just make it that, yes, you're getting loot, but you know, if you shower that many tokens with the small loot pool, everyone's going to have the roll super quick and they're not going to go back in the playlist, if that makes sense.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And I didn't actually know that the PvP weapons were limited in their perks, much more so. Like, I think about...
Trials.
Yeah, sorry, the Trials weapons. I think about how many gnawing hungers I've gotten recently, and like there's just like so many possibilities for a good roll out of that, but there's a ton of good PvE rolls and PvP rolls that come out of that as well.
Exactly, and that's what I think. I think Bungie did a good job with at least the desirable special weapons and some of the primaries that this time around they have a PvE roll and a PvP roll for you to go for. Like, for example, like the Eye of Soul, I had a snapshot Vorpal. You guys kind of laughed at me for using it in the raid yesterday night. But I'm like, guys, as Vorpal weapon, it's pretty good. But you can get like Firmly Planted and Vorpal, so you can get your reload if you're trying to use it for DPS, you know? So like, I think Bungie did a good job with that. But that would be my counter. If we're going to be showering with tokens, which I do agree with, I can understand if you're just doing it for the repeatable bounty. Because especially if you're not winning, that can take 3 or 4 or 5 losses. I remember when Shill and I were helping people with the 3 wins, there will be times where I think we got you to 3 wins in one go, and you didn't have your participation bounty done yet, you know. But then we helped someone else, and it took them maybe one like 2 wins and like 2 losses for that to happen. So I do agree with that. I think that might be the shout. To get more people in the playlist, but I also don't want to be handing out, you know, good rolls like crazy for getting that many chances at it, you know.
Yeah, and that's why I think what Adept looks like needs to be important. It needs to be strong enough that it is something you really want to go after and is farmable, like in a certain way, but it can't be Luna's Howl, Not Forgotten level of so much better than the other 100%. Versions. Like, that's the tough part about this. We got about.
I never got to. Go ahead, sorry.
I was just saying we got about 5 minutes left, and we could go over chat and ask for questions. But if you want to finish your thought, go ahead.
No, I was gonna just add on that I didn't like the Not Forgotten. scenario either as a PvP player. I think that was dumb. So I'm on your side with that.
All right, so I'm going to scroll up through chat just a little bit. Shill asked, what are our thoughts on Galahorn in PvP? Shill, I love you, but it's not in PvP, and you're a dork. Splash says, when everyone is special, no one is. You should have, like, it's Guardian versus Guardian, you should have supers in PvP. But he's saying that there should be, like, PvP-specific perks. That'd be an interesting thing to discuss on that at some point. And
I think with supers, I just wanted to touch on that, Splash. I think supers should be in PvP, but I don't think it should be the deciding factor of a Trials match. Like, if everyone can get to one super, unless you 100% slay out and the other team just doesn't have a chance, because like, there is skill in trying to beat another super. Like, I actually enjoy dueling supers. When I was playing with True Vanguard, I beat a couple of supers with my Dawnblade, which I normally aren't able to do, and I got to get some nice sweet clips for that. But there's a level of skill of actually knowing how to use your super. But the way Trials is right now, you're just trying to see if you can get the second super just to get the team wipe to win the match. It's not okay. I would welcome like the last round of Trials to decide it to be a super battle. I'd be totally okay with that.
Right. We do have a specific question from the chat. Tech Jaeger asks, not sure if you've talked about this, but what do we think about the double rewards for Nightfall this week? And do you think it was a good move to get more people in the playlist like we've been talking about? Go first.
The Nightfall, 100%. I never do the Nightfall until something like this, honestly. So, it's a very obvious trend when you see more people in the playlist when there's actually something to go for. So I welcome it. I have no problem with it.
Yeah, and I think you could apply it to Trials. We were talking in Discord earlier today, like if you doubled the loot, like if people were getting 2 snipers for 3 wins this week or something like that, I feel like like you could do the same sort of thing, like when Trials is getting stale, when content gets delayed or something like that. Like they were able to go into the Nightfall and say, hey, we're going to make sure that double loot drops from this. Maybe it's a glitch, maybe it's not. I don't know the insides of Bungie, but like I think doing double loot or triple infamy or triple tokens, like these are all ways they could encourage people to get into the playlists that they're not using right now. And Valence asks as well here at the bottom, how do you feel about skill-based matchmaking being removed? Should we do a whole podcast on this one?
We might need one, but I think it would be good if you and I had our own, just a quick opinion on it.
Sure.
Just so that we can end it on it. So it's 2 different perspectives. As a PvP player, I welcome it just because I don't want every game, like I go to Crucible to kind of relax, at least quick play. I don't go into slay out. Like I don't care if I get stomped in quick play. That's my fault. Because it's connection based. But I'll tell you, like when I started to get a little better at PvP, I couldn't run any fun guns. I had to use my Charhard loadout. So I welcome it in that respect. But what do you think, Kai?
I don't mind it. Let me be clear. Like in Destiny terms, I don't play much PvP, but I'm average. Like I have about a 1.0 KD, which is better than half the Destiny population. So there's a significant number of people that are much worse at PvP than I am. I've played a lot of PvP in the past, Halo, Call of Duty. Like I have enough skills that I'm not horrible at the PvP side of it.
Kai's so like, good. There's a clip I have of him that he was slaying out. So Kai's pretty good.
Lol. So even with that, like I think skill-based matchmaking and the removal of skill-based matchmaking, someone is always hurt by whatever system you put in. And skill-based matchmaking made it so lower level players were kept away from higher level players. But that there's a cost to that, where higher level players were stuck in much longer matchmaking queues and in much tougher lobbies. So like I can totally see the perspective of, hey, I don't have to run the meta. I don't have to be perfect in every particular way to have a fun game of Crucible. I think the lowest people on the totem pole feel this too. Like I've been playing a lot of momentum control this week to try to finish up Mountaintop. And
Hmm.
like it's really obvious when it's 180 to 50 one match and then it flips the other match. Like there's a lot of lopsided games due to the talent imbalances. And we've posted pictures of games like that all the time where you
Yeah.
where you drop 40 kills and like what happened, we mercied them in 5 minutes. So like there's always a price to each side of that
Yeah.
thing, but like I'm probably going to come a little bit further down on the try hard side of it, meaning like if you're playing a ton of the game, whether it's PvP or PvE, I want that balance tilted a little bit towards that side of it. So I'm okay with skill-based matchmaking being removed and the playlists where they are. I don't have any major issues with it.
I just want to I know we're about to run out of time. I don't want you to be late for your raid, but just one little tidbit. I think it was Cool Guy and Fallout that made a comment about it, that they said that there has to be some kind of outlier for those who are just who had just started playing Destiny, because it feels bad when you run into that one guy who's 764 light running all blue weapons and blue armor, and they're just running around not knowing what they're doing, and then you have mountaintops and bastions just slapping them left and right. So have some kind of protection for them.
I would agree. Some sort of first 10 matches. I think something like that exists because I have jumped on my wife's account a few times when she hasn't played for like a year. And I've gone like 5.0 in some of those matches, like just coming back. And I'm just like, okay, something is wrong with this playlist because like no one knows how to like hold the controller kind of thing. So I think something like that exists, but like it should probably be something more like along what Fortnite or PUBG does, where they basically just have a pool of, hey, you just joined this game, we're going to put you in with a whole bunch of other people in your situation and sort of keep you in the kindergarten playground for a couple of matches, and then if you do really well, we'll send you up to the adult playground.
Makes sense.
All right, guys, I think we're going to cut it off there. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone for participating.
Thanks, guys.
Let us know what you thought. We're going to post this on both of our YouTubes in the next couple of days, so you'll be able to check out the videos and give us comments, everything like that. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Ark, you want to say anything to close out?
No, thanks, guys. This was a very good experience. I appreciate it. So I'm open for tips.
All right, guys. Have a good night. I'm going to stop recording the podcast part, and then I'm going to jump into my raid.
Take care, guys.
Later.